Incoming Invader. We're going to jump in with some Zombicide Invader Tactica. Maybe you're thinking about jumping in yourself, or you're a fan of Black Plague and modern, and you're looking to make that jump to sci-fi, exploring some of the Tactica differences and nuances of this game. So the first aspect, and I'm simplifying things a little bit. Certainly there's playthrough videos and other detailed videos of the mechanics. We're trying to catch that feel, that overall Tactica feel, to build that checklist in the moment, which is going to adapt based on the mission. But essentially, the game is a spawn engine. You have your heroes, your actors, your characters. You have the mission. It might be to make it to a certain point. It might be to destroy some spawn points. It might be to rescue some scientists. But a spawn-based game means at the beginning, there's only a few invaders. Then every turn, they're going to grow more and more and more and more. They're going to spawn more and more and more. How this happens is somewhat random. I mean, you could draw an abomination first draw. I've had that happen. You could draw it midway through. You might make it to the end, depending on the card distribution. And of course, I always shuffle up the deck. But the one thing that you can count on is the spawns are going to happen. So what this means early on, that's where mobility is important. Keep it moving, but that's where you can spend time searching for gear, acquiring items, getting oxygen tanks, because the wave of invaders that are close to where your characters are, you can take care of them. The ones that spawn at other points, it's going to start pushing this wave towards you. It's going to take a couple of turns, potentially, to arrive there. So early on, mobility important, but searching, acquiring important. And then that switches towards mid and end game, where at that point, whatever gear you have, as soon as you make contact with that far wave, and now things are hitting you from more than one place, at that point, whatever gear you have, you have. If it's experimental, that's what you have. If it's just kind of starting gear because you didn't draw that many great things or you swapped out a few things, there you go. That's what you have. The other aspect of the game is what's interesting. Every imaging and re-imaging of the Zombicide has something new to add to kind of make it unique. And what we see in Invader, the mold spawn, this idea of this corrosive spawn that not only destroys rooms, so you can't search, or if there's mission objectives and they spawn there, that's going to be a challenge, and it breaks down doors and walls, but it's created as certain abominations go. And if they connect in a certain way, you lose the mission. But what's deadlier is the fact that certain spawn cards, what we see in Zombicide is they spawn at entry points, defined entry points by tokens on the board. But in Invader, they also spawn in these corrosive mold pits. So if there's 1 or 2 or 3 out, that's where the spawn is. If there's 5 or 6 out, each one spawns by itself. So being able to potentially shut these pits down is important. Now you can burn them, or the abomination that spawns in the core game that creates these mold pits, that's what you have to take out. That's what you have to eliminate potentially as fast as possible. Unlike other versions of Zombicide, you can concentrate fire, you can destroy it with lesser type weapons, but it's going to take a little bit of luck, but it's also going to take a little bit of commitment that's going to burn action points, but you can. So the idea of, even if you're on your way and you're bypassing the abomination, you might need to make contact and take it out because of these spawn pits. What spawns, of course, regular worker aliens, regular zombies. Think about regular zombies if you're familiar with the other versions of the game. The runners, in this case seekers, they move very, very fast. And the tanks, the heavy hitters, all of them are a concern. But the seekers, the runners that move very, very fast, they activate, they're going to move, then be on top of you. And when they're on top of you, the double activation is going to pile up wounds very, very fast. These become especially problematic when, based on certain scenarios, there's mold pits at different points. And even though an abomination is not going to link up potentially, when you get these spawns for those pits that are not the starting point, more stuff's going to pile out. So that perspective, you also have to navigate in the beginning of the game and say, well, how close am I to some of these pits? Can I take them out early on? If I bypass them, what's the spawn plan? So you see where it's not just managing the spawns like in other Zombicide games, but it is effectively understanding and navigating these mold pits. I find the game, I love Black Plague. I love Modern. A buddy of mine has a fantastically painted set. That's the only reason I don't have Modern in my collection. Anytime I feel like playing it, I could just go over and play his set. But I really like Invader because it's set in a sci-fi setting, which most of the games in my collection are fantasy RPG based, dungeon crawler based. So it's nice to get a board game that's kind of out of the standard fantasy setting and jump to a more futuristic sci-fi setting. That's kind of interesting to play that. But I also really I like blasting aliens. Who doesn't? The only thing better is blasting zombies. But the mold pits and the spawns from that perspective add a new layer of unpredictability that one has to navigate. Now, being random, that might kind of annoy you because you draw some random cards early on and get a lot of seeker spawns and things are moving and you're like, wow, we're in trouble. But likewise, that's just the name of the game. Literally, Invader, you have to deal with it. You have to adjust. You have to adapt in that moment. So that's kind of the Tactica that I look at. And then now we layer over the different missions. Where do we need to be? What are we going to do? And how are we going to do it?